Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We are here. We are live, and we are ready for week 13. And no, I'm not going to make the joke. I want to make the joke. Deep down in my soul, I want to make the joke, but I'm not going to. I might at the end of the stream, but I'm not going to before that. So, we're coming off quite a successful week in week 12, including obviously for the team that I back. The Packers, huge win on Thanksgiving, massive. Nobody believed in me. Nobody believed in me when I made that pick. I totally understand, though. I totally get why nobody believed in it, but I believed in it, and that's what matters. So I'm a couple minutes early here, so we'll just give everybody a minute or so to come in. I see Half Moon is already in the chat, and he answers with a resounding bleh. Yeah. Being a Packers fan, I know that feeling this season because a lot of this season has just been bleh. But luckily, maybe we do one of these, and Jordan Love and the team might be moving in the right direction. So hopefully that's where we're heading. Turkey tasted sour this year. I did wonder what your Thanksgiving must have been like. I did spare a thought for you this holiday season, Moon. So take that for what it is. But I did stop and think, like, I wonder what it's like right now in the Moon household after that game. All right. So let's get this bad boy started here. That looks good, except we're gonna put this back up to where it's supposed to be. Put it right around there. That sounds good. All cranberries and no meat. Fair enough. What a great way to describe that feeling. All right, here we go. In 5, 4, 3. What's happening, everybody? Justin, Bridgewater's finest on YouTube, Blockbuster_guy on Twitter, fueled as always by the incredible folks at Nerd Tees, and welcome to week 13 of my weekly NFL football pick show for the 2023 NFL season, coming off of a relatively successful Thanksgiving week of games in week 12. Really good straight up, pretty darn good against the spread, gave a bit of it back on the totals. That just seems like the Bridgewater's finest soupçon right there. So let's go ahead and talk about it. 11-5 straight up in week 12. Nothing wrong with that. Now 115-65 on the season. So a full 50 games above 500, picking the games straight up, just under 64%. I feel really good about that. Against the spread, we had our heads above water at 9-7. Now 98, 79, and 3 against the spread on the year. Thumbs up on that one. And on the totals, 6-10. So, you know what? Not great. We've certainly been worse. We've definitely been better. Matter of fact, we were better last week, but 6-10 gave a little bit back there. Now 82, 96, and 2 picking the totals over or under this season. When you look at the primetime games, obviously where we had 3 games on Thursday night, we had the Packers beat the Lions 29-22, a straight up and against the spread win for me, but I did tell you to take the under in that one, and that did not hit. We had the Cowboys beating the Commanders, dominating them 45-10. That I swept that one. A straight up win against the spread win, and I told you to take the over. And we had the Niners beat the Seahawks 31-13, which was a straight up and against the spread win for me as well. But I did tell you to take the under in that game, and we got half pointed at 43.5. C'est la vie, it happens. Off to a good start on Thursday with a 7-2 mark across those 3 games. I did put the Black Friday game, the Miami New York Jets game, in my flex position because, of course, the Packers played on Thursday. Miami wins that game 34-13, a straight up and against the spread win for me, but I did lose on the total. On Sunday Night Football, the Ravens beat the Chargers 20-10, doubled them up. Once again, straight up win against the spread win, but I did tell you to take the over in that game, so obviously that did not hit. And then basically completely whiffed on the Monday Nighter, except on the total. I did tell you to stay under 43.5, and that does. They only get 22 points, so that definitely works out. But I did have Minnesota winning that game. The Bears win that game 12-10, so a straight up loss and an against the spread loss as well. Overall, we'll certainly take that for the primetime games in a week where there were a lot of primetime games. Taking a peek at the Bridgewater's finest straight up pick 'em pool for season 12 of this show, I sit in 12th place out of 52 in that pool with 990 of 1,447 possible confidence points. That's a clip of just under 68.5%. We're in good position so far this season. And I brought in 104 of 136 possible confidence points in week 12. That is a clip of 76.5%. We like that. Shout out to our week 12 winner, who is now, once again, as seems to be tradition because everybody's so close at the top, not only the winner of week 12, but the new overall leader, RR Sports, going an immaculate 14-2 in week 12, 128 of 136 possible confidence points. That's a clip of 94.1%. A massive week for RR Sports, who now takes over the overall lead with 1,043 of 1,447 possible confidence points, a clip of just over 72% on the season. While I'm thinking about it, I wonder if RR Sports are those dudes that a few years ago tried to advertise their Drew Lock video in my comments, and I went and told them that was bad etiquette, and then they screamed at me in their own comments. Wonder if that's them. If you are, let me know. Anyway, they take over the overall lead. They're 120-60 on the season, so they're having a great time picking games this year. We take a peek now into Fantasy Corner, which is, of course, brought to you by the Dynasty Trade Calculator, one of the absolute best resources available online for Dynasty, Keeper, and long-term fantasy football. My affiliate link for them is down in the description down below. And for as little as a cup of coffee, you can gain access to one of the absolute best resources available online for long-term fantasy football. Trade evaluations, player rankings, podcasts, a ton of great experts on that site. Again, my affiliate link is down below. For as little as a cup of coffee, you can get the inside track on your Dynasty League startup or otherwise. Doesn't matter what your format is. Win yourself some Dynasty championships, just like this guy right here. Now, I went 6-2 across my 8 fantasy football teams in week 12, which included wins in both of my Dynasty leagues, the Professionals Dynasty and Ante & Co. In the Professionals, I picked up the win against Chris to even my record on the season at 6-6. I sit in 6th place in that pool, and it's looking good to make the playoffs. I'm 2 games up with a couple of weeks left to go before the playoffs begin. So it's looking good, but it's not clinched as of yet, so I still have work to do. In the Ante & Co. League, I picked up a big win over Carmine to move my record to 9-3. I remain in first place in that league out of 12, and I got a week 13 matchup coming up against Anthony in the Professionals, which is a tough matchup, and Tensa in Ante & Co. Both of those are too close to call. I firmly believe both of those are games that I have to win this week. I'm looking for a huge performance in fantasy and in Dynasty in particular this week with 6 teams on bye, and we're careening towards the playoffs. So every week is super important. And I'll take this opportunity, as I always do, to remind you that if you go to the description of this live stream, the VOD, the podcast episode, wherever you interact with this show, you can find all of my results from last week, all my straight up against the spread and over under plays for week 13 in the NFL. We're going to find information on joining the Bridgewater's finest pick'em pool for season 12 of this show. If you win a week, you get yourself shouted out on the show. You're going to find information on joining the NFL YouTube Prognosticators Facebook page, and you're going to find information on my great friends and sponsors at Nerd Tees. Ladies and gentlemen, Black Friday might be behind us, but Christmas is still firmly in front of us, and your time's running out, but you still got time. You're going to want to go to nerdtees.ca, and when you go to nerdtees.ca, you're going to want to use my promo code, which is BWFinest. That is going to save you 15% at checkout You're going to get free shipping in Canada on any order over $125, and you're going to get a great conversion rate on the US dollar as well. Today's blend is one of those flavor combinations that shouldn't work, but absolutely does. Ladies and gentlemen, it is maple peach. Maple and peach, but you put them together, it's delectable, smells great, tastes great. Nerdteas.ca, Nerd Teas and Coffee Bean, dozens and dozens of incredible loose leaf tea, flavored coffee, and estate coffee blends. Anything your little taste palette desires, you can find on nerdteas.ca. Use that promo code BWFinest, save your 15%, get your free shipping, find yourself something to love, or find someone you love something to love. You can do it on nerdteas.ca. So before we keep moving with the show here, let's see who we've got in the chat. We've got Half Moon in the chat as normal. Roadrunner Sports leading your pool as well. Hey, okay, it's cool. If it's Roadrunner Sports, it's not the guys I'm thinking about. So two thumbs up on that one. Martin is in the chat, my good friend Martin. Hey, Martin, glad to have you around, my friend. Andrew is here as well. I'm here, and I will wear my I Love Breakfast shirt, as I said I would in the Green Bay Detroit game. Thank you so much, brother. I really, really appreciate that. Maple Peach, what does Mario think of that? That's really funny. That's so funny. I kind of hate you because I wish I would have come up with that myself. I really, really like that. So A+ to you, Andrew. That's going to be probably the chat of the week. If I did a chat of the week, that would absolutely win the chat of the week. But here's what I am going to do with that one. If I've got the ability to, I'm just going to pin that right to the top. Because quite frankly, that's hysterical, and that deserves to be pinned right at the top. Is that a Canadian Mario? I like that too. Well done, well done. You guys are on fire tonight. I like that. That's good. All right. So we are going to be heading into obviously a short week here. It's only 13 games, and another week where the Green Bay Packers are in a primetime game. So obviously, I had to find another game to fill that spot because I'm going to be talking about the Packers, obviously, in one of the primetime spots. And there was no debate this week. Like, the obvious game to put in there is the one that I did put in there, which is the San Francisco 49ers and the Philadelphia Eagles. Yes, I've talked about both of these teams at length, but I mean, this is an NFC Championship game preview. I mean, I think you have to feel that way at this point in the season. These are probably the two best teams in the NFC, among the top five best teams in the NFL. So this is like the marquee game of the week, even though it's not in prime time. So we definitely move that into the flex spot this week. You should pin your comments in your live stream and make that the comment of the week. That's a good idea. That's a good idea, Andrew. I can go back like right after the stream and do that. I'm going to do that moving forward. Thank you. I appreciate that. All right, we are going to kick things off this week, of course, with the Thursday night game, which is the Seattle Seahawks traveling to Dallas to take on the Cowboys. Now, these are two teams firmly going in opposite directions. The Seahawks have dropped 2 straight games. Their offense is really, really struggling lately. The defense not keeping up either. They're giving up, they're in the bottom 5 in terms of most points allowed over the last 4 games. So defense not getting it done, offense not getting it done. When you look on the Cowboys sideline, they might be the best offense in football right now, moving the ball tremendously well, putting up a ton of points. Their efficiency is great. They're winners of 3 straight games. And what I think the big thing with the Cowboys is they protect the football. They're among the best teams in the NFL in terms of the turnover ratio. They're right there in terms of, like, it's not like a +1 per game, but it's pretty darn close. There's a couple of teams in the NFL that are averaging +1 or better per game in terms of the turnover ratio. Dallas isn't quite there, but they're still one of the top teams in the league in terms of generating turnovers on defense, not giving them up on the offensive side. It's a well-oiled machine, especially on the offense here for the Cowboys, and it's just very tough for me to look at this game in any other way than Dallas is at home. Dallas is playing incredible football right now, and Dallas rolls. Seattle should get Ken Walker back this week, which obviously would be a boost for them on the offensive side. And like everybody was very quick to write off Ken Walker last week. I engaged with this a little bit on Twitter. Everybody was really quick to write off Ken Walker and say like, oh, it's Ken Walker's injured, so it's Zach Charbonnet, and Zach Charbonnet is going to take over this backfield and everything like that. And I think that's like, it's dynasty fantasy football syndrome. In a way, everybody wants to see the next guy, the next young guy, not realizing like Ken Walker's not old. It feels like he's been in the league longer than he has, but he has not been in this league for a long time. He is one of the elite running backs in the NFL. So look, Ken Walker is still Ken Walker. And I don't think everybody should be so quick to want to crown the next guy just because they just drafted him. So I think everybody got a little too excited about Zach Charbonnet. He had a good game. He had a fine game last week, but like I think everybody was a little too quick to jump on the Zach Charbonnet train. They should get Ken Walker back, which would be good news for them. I do still think the Dallas Cowboys roll in this game. So let's take Dallas at home to get the win over Seattle. On the line, the Cowboys are laying big points. They're laying -9 here at home, but I think it's justified. Once again, probably the best offense in football. They're right up there with like Baltimore. Baltimore would be in this conversation as well. They're moving the ball really well, exceptionally efficient. 9 points. It makes sense to me, especially with a Seattle team that's leaky right now, giving up a ton of points, not very efficient. It's not difficult to move the ball on them. So -9, I feel like Dallas is going to cover here. So let's go -9 on the Cowboys. Total in the game set at 46.5 points. Actually, Half Moon makes a really good point here. Geno Smith playing hurt. I think he's going to still play, but to your point, playing hurt, not playing at 100%. Excellent. I appreciate that, my friend. 46.5. I think I'm still going to go over on this one because, again, you're talking about a not great defense right now in the Seahawks. And that's different from earlier in the season. Earlier in the season, Seattle's defense was playing exceptionally well. They're kind of on the other side of that coin right now. I find it difficult to believe that they'll keep Dallas under 30. And if they don't do that, this over should hit. So we're going to go over the 46.5 point total. Let's go 33-20 in favor of the Cowboys. Dallas wins, Dallas covers, and give me the over on the points. Andrew comes in with a hot take here. Seattle's falling apart and should be an unpopular opinion. Pete Carroll should be fired or retired. That is a hot take. I'm not ready to go that far yet because I really do believe he has that locker room, and I think it's like close to unwavering. So with all that support, I don't think they're going to can him. I mean, he might be done. He's been doing this for a long time, but yeah, that is an unpopular opinion for sure. But yeah, that's an interesting one. That's an interesting one. All right. Couple of quick ones here before we get to that aforementioned game between the Niners and the Eagles. Let's start in Tennessee, battle of the AFC South here. The Indianapolis Colts in town to take on a Tennessee Titans team that got back on the happy side of things last week. They picked up the win. Colts come into this game winners of 3 straight games, playing good football, especially on the offensive side. The defense has at the very least been efficient. So they're kind of middle of the road in terms of what they allow for yardage and what they allow for points. This offense, I think, is still very, very good. However, the offense has definitely taken a hit, and that is Jonathan Taylor. It was announced just a little while ago. He's going to be going under the knife for surgery on his thumb. So he is going to be out probably 1 to 2 weeks. They could probably wrap it up and have him play next week. But, I mean, I think Indianapolis is trying to think a little bit further ahead here. Every game is important. Every game is exceptionally important for a team like that right now. And it obviously sucks to lose your starting running back. Zach Moss did pretty darn well in this offense earlier in the season before JT came back. So it might not be as big of a hit as it is on other teams, but I mean, definitely noteworthy that Jonathan Taylor is not going to be out there for at least this week, if not further ahead. So look, two teams that at least have some momentum coming into this one. I mean, top to bottom, the Colts are the better team. The Titans are one of the worst, if not the worst, offenses in football right now. Like there are teams that score fewer points than them, but just across the board, total offense, points scored, efficiency, like they're one of the worst offenses in football. And even though the Colts defense is nothing to write home about or hasn't been for most of the season, at least they've kind of turned the corner efficiency wise. I really like the Colts in this spot. Let's take Indianapolis on the road in Tennessee to get the win over the Titans. On the line, the Colts are favored here on the road by 1.5. Obviously, I like them to win. Small price to pay. Let's lay the minus 1.5. Total in the game set at 42.5. I don't love this either way. I'm going to lean a very, very, very close under on this. I'd probably stick over on it if Jonathan Taylor was still in there, but obviously it changes the game plan a little bit. I'm going to go under by like the slightest of margins here. I'm going to go like 23-18 in favor of the Colts. So that's 41 points, but it still hits the under. Colts win, Colts cover. Give me the under on the points. Moon, another very good point. Colts are in a wild card spot at the moment. Every game for a team like that is exceptionally important. Battle of two of the most struggling teams in the AFC right now, the Los Angeles Chargers going to New England to take on the Patriots. I mean, it's crazy here that I think the Patriots have now locked up their first back-to-back losing seasons in the Bill Belichick era. Am I right in saying that? Like first since like 2000, 2001 or something like that. Their first back-to-back losing campaigns. Crazy to think of that considering where this team has been. The LA Chargers, like I say, losers of 3 straight games, but if you look at just the efficiency numbers, you wouldn't think this is a team that's lost 3 straight. Their offense is one of the most efficient in the NFL. Their defense is fairly efficient. They give up a ton of yardage, mind you, but from an efficiency perspective, they're actually pretty good because they don't give up as many points as you'd think they would, considering the yardage that they give up. Chargers have lost 3 straight. Patriots have lost 4 straight. I got to lean with an edge here to the road Chargers simply because I think that's a better roster top to bottom. I don't know who's going to be playing quarterback for the Patriots this week, whether it's going to be Bailey Zappi or whether they go back to Mac Jones. That just seems like a total mess in that quarterback room yet again for like the second or third time this season. That seems like a mess. And the Patriots are one of the teams at the bottom of the turnover ratio in the NFL. They turn the ball over a lot. They're not generating a ton on the defensive side. I think they have more mistakes in this game than the Chargers do. So let's take the Chargers on the road to get the win over New England. Now, on the line, the Patriots are taking +6, which feels like a really, really big line. Like it feels like a lot of points to lay for a team that's not great. And the Chargers are a team that's not great. 6 points seems like a ton because if you're not great, it almost doesn't matter who you're playing. But that's why the Chargers are such a conundrum because they have the roster to be great. They have nuclear weapons on that roster. And it's crazy that they're not great, or at least that they're not far better than what they are. I'm going to hold my nose on this one, but I'm going to lay the 6 points. The Patriots are not exactly a team that inspires a ton of confidence against the spread this season. Like I don't love this, but we're going to go ahead and lay the -6 on the Chargers. Total in the game set at 39.5 points. I don't know what I'm going to get from one side of this game, so I have to stay under on this, even though it's such a beatable number. Let's go like 23-13 in favor of the Chargers. Chargers win, Chargers cover, and give me the under on the points. Half moon with a great point here. A Mac Jones pick 6 will cover that spread. That might happen. The funniest part about that is it's not at all an unrealistic outcome. That is on the list of outcomes. That's fairly high on the list. That could absolutely happen. And that's what makes that so funny. All right. And before we get to that Niners Eagles game, let's look at the Detroit Lions in New Orleans taking on the Saints. The Saints, a team that have dropped back to back games here and are dealing with some injuries on the offensive side, despite the fact that they have their QB1 back. The Lions are going to come into this game with the benefit of the long week, having played on Thursday night. Yes, they lost last week. But again, Saints have lost 2 straight, and their wide receiver room could very well be hurting in this game. We don't really know what that's going to look like. You got Chris Olave, who's currently in concussion protocol, and you've got Rashid Shaheed, who's dealing with a leg injury. Those are 2 big targets in the pass game. Now, between the 2 of them, I would say it's probably more likely that Rashid Shaheed plays, because it is just a thigh injury. It's not like a groin or a hamstring or soft tissue, one of those things that takes a couple of weeks. It's a thigh injury, which I think he'll probably be able to play through. Chris Olave, it's not that you can't clear concussion protocol and play the next week, but the way it's been trending this season is players are more than likely to sit that next game. And especially with a guy like Chris Olave, who's a young superstar player in the making for this Saints team, I think they probably err on the side of caution with him. I would be very surprised if Chris Olave plays. So that's likely an out, and that definitely hurts the Saints on the offensive side. I think is a great point by Andrew here in the chat. Detroit's got to be mad about that Thursday game, that Thanksgiving game, because like I don't want to say they gave that away, but I mean, Jared Goff fumbling the ball 3 times, I believe it was, wasn't it? And against a defense like Green Bay's, you can't do that because they are an opportunistic defense. So I don't necessarily see that from the Saints team. I think the Saints team is much more middle of the road when it comes to that. Now, they are a team that is a plus in the turnover ratio, but I also don't expect the Lions to turn the ball over 3-4 times again. Like, I don't expect that to happen. I do think Detroit comes into this game mad. I do think they take it out on the Saints. So let's take Detroit here on the road in New Orleans to beat the Saints. On the line, the Saints are taking plus 4.5 as the home dog here, but the Saints have been like a black hole against the spread this year. They're awful. I think they're like 2-8-1, something like that. Like they're bad against the spread this year. It doesn't matter if they're a favorite, doesn't matter if they're a dog. They are not good against the spread this year. I don't know that they've covered a single time at home yet. I don't think they have, or if they have, it might only be like 1. So 4.5 points. Okay, yeah, 0-4 against the spread at home. Moon confirms it for me. I appreciate that. I thought that was what I saw. So like it's 4.5 points. It's under a touchdown. Detroit, I believe, is objectively the better football team. I do think Alvin Kamara has himself a big game, but let's take Detroit to cover that minus 4.5. Total in the game set at 45.5 points. This is kind of a marginal over for me. I don't love this play, but it's where I feel it's at least a little more likely, because look, Detroit moves the ball very well and they've been scoring a lot of points lately. Their poor defense is a vacuum. Like their defense is not good right now. Has not been playing well over the last month or so. So let's grab an over here. We're going to go like 26-20. I think this is a pretty darn good number, but I do think the over hits. So let's go 26-20 in favor of the Lions, who win and cover the -4 against the spread. Give me the over. All right. The San Francisco 49ers on the road in Philadelphia taking on the Eagles. Once again, Half Moon said it. I'm going to say it too. Marquee game of the week. Like, this is the game of this week. Once again, probably an NFC title game preview that we get here in week 13. The Niners are going to be coming into this game on the tail end of back-to-back road games. You never love to see that, but it actually, the teams that were on the back-to-back road games actually did fairly well last week. I think they were 2-1 straight up, 2-1 against the spread, something like that. So they did find some success last week, where there hasn't been a ton of success for those teams to this point this season. Niners come into this game with the benefit of the long week, having played on Thursday. Winners of 3 straight games. The Eagles are winners of 5 straight games. The Eagles are on a roll, the first team to 10 wins in the NFL this season, and they should be very proud of that. Now, a couple things here that I think are going against the Eagles. Number one, I don't think their defense is playing particularly well right now. From an efficiency perspective, they are top 10. However, they are giving up bottom 5 yardage, nearly 430 yards a game of offense over their last 4 games. So, I mean, that's not good. They're giving up a ton of yardage, and they're giving up over 26 points a game in that same span. And you look at them and go, well, yes, but the schedule, the opponents, the strength of opponents, if you're an elite team, it shouldn't matter. If you're an elite team, you're going to have to play and beat elite teams. So at that point, I don't think the strength of schedule matters that much. If you're a middling team, totally, I get it. But if you're an elite team, opposition almost shouldn't matter. It's objectively demonstrable that this Eagles defense is not playing up to the caliber of its offense, which is super efficient right now and has been scoring a lot of points. But you look on the other side, you look at this Niners team, they're doing Niners things, which is they're winning games on the defensive side of the ball. Hyper efficient defensively, giving up top 5 fewest points in the league over the last month. Teams are not moving the ball on them. They're only giving up 282 yards over their last 4 games. And to add to things, I don't think the Eagles are going to have Fletcher Cox on the defensive line this week. He's dealing with a groin injury. That's a TBD. He might be a game time decision. They're in one of the later windows on Sunday, I think the 4:25 window. So it does give them a little bit of extra time to see if he's ready to go. I personally am putting him closer to doubtful than questionable. So if they don't have one of their biggest weapons on the D-line, even though their D-line is still very good, regardless of whether Cox plays or not, he is a big part of that run defense and the defensive line. I really like the Niners this week. I think the Niners go into Philly, which is an exceptionally difficult place to play, and I think the Niners get the win, even though the Eagles have all the bulletin board material and they love to call themselves underdogs, even though they're the first team to 10 wins. So it's weird. It's weird to characterize themselves that way. I guess you got to do whatever you got to do to get your boys motivated. But I think the Niners go in there and I think they get a win in Philly. So let's take San Francisco to beat Philadelphia. On the line, the Niners are laying -3 here as a road favorite. I like them to win. It's a relatively small price to pay. Let's lay the -3 on the 49ers. Total in the game set at 46.5 points. I do think this is two, very good offenses that score plenty of points. And with the Eagles having trouble keeping points off the board, I'm going to lean over on this one. I think this game gets up to 50. So let's go over 46.5 in San Francisco, Philadelphia. Let's go Niners 28, Eagles 23. Niners win, Niners cover, and give me the over on the points. The Eagles are one of those fan bases that they're going to find this video, and I'm going to be catching some shit talk from Eagles fans over the next week. I could just picture it now. C'est la vie. You can't take everybody. All right, let's do some more quickies here. It may be cold and wet day in Philly. Yeah, it's true. Might lead to more of the run game, and if it's going to lead to more of the run game, give me CMC. The Atlanta Falcons in New York to take on the Jets. The Jets in an absolute tailspin right now, losers of 4 straight games. Atlanta got back on the happy side of things last week with a win. However, they are one of those teams that are really struggling with the turnovers right now. It's not up to -1 per game, but they're one of those teams that's near the bottom of the league in terms of the turnover differential. So they definitely have to clean that up. However, against this Jets team who has absolutely caved in on the offensive side of the ball and whose defense is now no longer keeping up or able to keep pace with the struggles of their offense, because again, it's strike to pass, pass to strike. Play good offense to take some pressure off your defense. Play good defense to take some pressure off your offense. The Jets aren't doing either one of those things right now. This is a bad football team that I believe is only getting worse. They've announced they're going to keep Tim Boyle at starting quarterback. So he's going to get another start next week, despite the fact that last week did not exactly go well, though he did throw a touchdown pass to Garrett Wilson. So at least my dynasty teams were happy that he did that. But other than that, I didn't see very much there. If they're going to keep him there, I got to go with the Falcons on the road here. Let's take Atlanta in New York to get the win over the Jets. On the line, the Jets are taking +3 here as a home dog. I like Atlanta to win. It's a relatively small price to pay. Let's lay the -3 on the Falcons. Total in this game is set at 34, and that's such a gross total. Because could this game be like a 17-10? Absolutely. It absolutely could. But I'm going to lean over on this because once again, the Jets defense no longer keeping pace. So let's go over on this exceptionally low number. Over 34. Let's go like 24-13, something like that. Atlanta wins comfortably by a couple of possessions. Give me the over on the 34 points, and let's lay the -3. This could be the second week in a row I finished my tea. The Arizona Cardinals in Pittsburgh taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers, one of, I believe, just 2 teams in the NFL which currently sit at least +1 or better per game in the turnover ratio. They are a +11. They've played 11 games. The other team is the San Francisco 49ers, which is part of why I took them against Philly this week. But the other team that have played 11 games and are +11 in the turnover ratio are the Pittsburgh Steelers. So the offense has not turned the ball over a ton. That defense is ball hawking, man. That is a very, very good defense in Pittsburgh. They're playing exceptionally well, not giving up a ton of points. Efficiency, really, really strong. And the offense is even kind of turning it around a little bit. At the very least, the Steelers offense is not the black hole that it was at earlier parts of this season. The Arizona Cardinals, losers of 2 straight games. I don't particularly think the offense has improved a ton with Kyler Murray back. It's improved a little bit, but I don't think it's improved a ton. The defense is still kind of relatively struggling, although if anything, I think their defense is getting a little bit better than it was earlier in the season. I don't see a lot of reason why the Steelers don't win this game pretty comfortably. So let's take Pittsburgh at home to get the win over the Cardinals. And as a matter of fact, Pittsburgh probably going to be my survivor pick this week. On the line, Pittsburgh laying -5.5. Now, this actually felt like a lot of points because the Steelers are not a team that scores a lot of points. They're only scoring 17 and some points a game over their last 4. So offense here is really at a premium. I think the Steelers cover this number on the defensive side. I really do. If Arizona gets to double digits, I don't think it's much above 10. So at this point, you only need 17, which is about what they're averaging, to cover this number. So let's lay the -5.5 on Pittsburgh, but that was not a layup for me. Let's lay the -5.5. The total in the game, 40.5 points. I don't see this as a football game that gets to 40. That's not the way the Steelers play ball. So let's stick under on this one. Under 40.5 in Pittsburgh, Arizona. I'm going to go like a 24-10 final, something like that. Pittsburgh wins by a couple of possessions. They cover the -5.5 and give me the under on the 40.5 point total. And then before we get to the Chiefs and the Packers who play on Sunday night, we're going to preview the Miami Dolphins on the road in Washington to take on the Commanders. Now, Miami comes into this game on the tail end of back-to-back road games, one of just, I think, 4 teams that are on the tail end of back-to-backs. So they're on that, but they're winners of 2 straight games. They've kind of turned things back around on the offensive side, top 10, both in terms of yards per game and points scored per game. The defense Miami's playing a tidy little defensive game here over the last month, and not a lot of it's kind of like Chicago. Not a lot of people are talking about how that defense has kind of turned the corner there in Chicago, and the defense in Miami has kind of done the same thing. They've been playing some strong football lately. Washington comes into this game losers of 3 straight games. They do have the benefit of the long week because they did play on Thursday, but they're another one of those teams that are near the bottom of the league in terms of the turnover ratio. I think they've played 11 games, I think. And no, they've played 12 games because they haven't had their bye yet. And I think they are something like -8 or something like that in terms of the turnover ratio. So it's a problem. The offense definitely has turned the ball over a little bit too much. Sam Howell has been very good this season, hasn't been quite as good lately. Moon actually makes a good point in the chat there. Commanders 0-4-1 against the spread at home. I definitely feel like Miami wins this football game. I don't think it's a great matchup necessarily for their receivers, but I do think the combination of Raheem Mostert and Devon Shane, assuming he plays, should have a good day on the ground. So let's go ahead and take the Miami Dolphins to get the win here in Washington. Now, the reason Moon brought that up in the chat is because against the spread, the Dolphins are laying -9.5 on the road in Washington. That is a huge number that I really, really struggled with. And that was kind of a last second pick that I made, last second choice for myself. I am going to lay the -9.5 because I do think Miami is deserving of that with how they've played this season and how they've played lately. I just don't love it because it's such a big number. I don't love it. I'm gonna have kind of a related play on the total where I'm gonna take the over on the 49.5. It is, I believe, it is the largest total of the week. We don't have any totals in the 50s because the league's been such an under machine this year. 49.5 is going to be a very marginal over. I do think the game gets to 50, but barely. So we're going to go like 34-17 or something. Let's give Miami the double up here against the Commanders. So Miami wins. Miami covers the -9.5 and give me the over on the points, but barely. All right, let's skip ahead to Sunday Night Football. The Kansas City Chiefs on the road in Green Bay taking on my Green Bay Packers. Kansas City are on the tail end of back-to-back road games, but they're coming off of a win last week that didn't look great at the start. What did they spot the Raiders the first 14 points of the game? I remember I'm walking to a movie, I believe it was, and I just happened to peek into a local bar, a public house that is on the way, and they have the game, the Chiefs game on the television. And I peek up and I'm like, my God, it's 14-0. What is happening? Because I was really sweating it because the Chiefs were my survival pick last week. So I was like, oh my God, like I'm done. I'm done. It's over. Of course, they come back and win that game fairly handily. I think it was like 31-17 or something like that. So the Chiefs looked a little bit like the Chiefs eventually, eventually in that game. They have not exactly looked like the Chiefs over the last month or so. And once again, this also boils down to like, well, maybe it's a strength of schedule and competition thing. Once again, this Kansas City Chiefs team is supposed to be an elite team. So strength of schedule shouldn't matter. Elite teams, even against other elite teams, if you're an elite team, it shouldn't really matter who you're facing. But if you look at them on the offensive side, only 19.5 points per game over their last 4 games, only 309.5 yards of offense per game. Their efficiency is decent, but it's not, blowing the roof off. You take a look on the defensive side, their defense is playing not too bad. It's allowing the offense to keep pace. But that's not the kind of offensive number that we're used to seeing from this Kansas City Chiefs team. And again, it could be strength of schedule, but at the same time, that shouldn't matter as much. You look at the Green Bay Packers, they will have the benefit of the long week, of course, because they did play on Thursday. They're now winners of 2 straight games. And don't look now, but this defense, one of the most efficient defenses in the NFL over the last month, they're top 5. They're top 10 in terms of points allowed over the last month or so. This Packers team is playing very good football, especially on the defensive side. The offense kind of coming around now, 391 yards of offense per game over their last 4. So this Packers team, they're moving the football very well. The points are starting to come now, scoring just under 23 in that same span. The efficiency has turned around because they were cavernous for a little while. Their efficiency was really, really bad. I'm personally am very much pleased with what this Packers team looks like right now. And it's not just last week, it's been the last couple of weeks. You can kind of see that the turnaround was coming as they're getting a little bit healthier. I feel good about this team right now. Do I feel good enough about them against a team like Kansas City? I'm looking at one person right now. I'm looking at Moon because I know exactly what he's about to say in the chat. Packers win outright. If the Chiefs were playing anything like the Kansas City Chiefs over the last month, I would not touch this with a 10-foot pole. I wouldn't do it because, like, okay, that's a homer pick. Like, if the Chiefs were playing like the Chiefs, this would be a homer pick. I'm going to say it's not because the Chiefs ain't playing like the Chiefs right now. I don't know if it's the receivers. I don't know if it's the defense necessarily. Feels like it's the receivers. Let's be fair. MVS should have caught that. Like, that outcome should have been different. And I totally acknowledge that. But these Chiefs ain't playing like these Chiefs. I think Green Bay's defense can steal this football game. And I think that is exactly what the result is. I think the Packers defense steals this football game. Green Bay wins outright at Lambeau against the Chiefs. Okay. Sorry, I had a little brain fart there. So, since I like Green Bay to win this game outright, give me the plus 6.5 on the Packers. Again, they're taking 6.5. That's a pretty decent number. It's not a bad hedge, even if you don't think Green Bay wins this game. Take the plus 6.5. Total in the game's 42.5. I think this stays under. I think this is a defensive battle. And the Packers offense is not a world beater. Kansas City's offense is not playing like a world beater. So give me the under on this one. Under the 42.5 points. Let's go like 20-17 in favor of the Packers. They win it maybe on a last-second field goal. Imagine the atmosphere in Lambeau Field to win a game like that. Oh, would just be incredible. So let's go 20-17. Packers win. Packers cover. Give me the under on the points. All right, and let's run through a couple more quickies here before we get to the Monday Night Football game of the Cincinnati Bengals in Jacksonville to take on the Jags. Oh, and we got Matt, the NFL fanatic, in the chat here as well. Hey, Matt, thank you so much for popping in, checking out the stream, my friend. I saw you put up your picks for this week. I can't wait to check out your show. But before we get to the Monday night game, let's talk about a couple more here. The Denver Broncos in Houston taking on the Texans. A super interesting quarterback matchup here. Russell Wilson and CJ Stroud. You could argue the past versus the future. I don't really think Russ is the present, although the last couple of weeks, Russ has been playing himself some good football, reminding people that, like, hey, I'm still kind of good at this. So that has helped Denver to 5 consecutive wins. Arguably one of the hottest teams in the NFL right now are these Denver Broncos, and they're doing it on both sides of the ball. The offense has been playing pretty darn well lately, maximizing their opportunities despite the fact that they're bottom 10 in the last month in terms of total yardage. They've also been getting it done on the defensive side where they're not giving up a ton of points. Their efficiency is through the roof. It's both sides of the ball. It's a whole team effort right now for these Denver Broncos. Now, that's a team you can look at like this team has a dog mentality. The Houston Texans, they did lose last week, but I feel really good about the direction that this team is going in on the offensive side. CJ Stroud is a dog. Tank Dell is a dog. He is a literal tank. Nico Collins is a dog. I really like this team offensively. Houston's downfall right now is on the defensive side. They're bottom 10 across the board. Bottom 10 in efficiency, bottom 10 in yards allowed per game, and bottom 10 in points allowed per game over their last 4 games. So right now, this defense is letting this offense down. This defense needs like one big piece. That's what I would be pursuing. If I was the Houston Texans GM in the offseason, that's what I'm producing. Whoever the big fish is on defense in terms of free agents, that's exactly who I'm pursuing. Because I think if you get this defense sorted out, this Houston team is a problem. I think they're a problem next year. They get the run game sorted. I think Dameon Pierce hopefully has a turnaround season next year, but I do genuinely think this Houston team could be a problem if they get the defense sorted out. Where they don't yet have the defense sorted out, I really like the Denver Broncos in this spot, and I genuinely do not understand why the Texans are 3.5 point favorites. This number stank to me the second I wrote it down. So Denver to me is objectively the better team right now, certainly playing like the better team. They are a team that is among the best in the league in terms of the turnover differential. I think that plays a role in this game this week. Denver gets the win in Houston, and give me the +3.5 on the Broncos, who feel like they should probably only be maybe a +1.5, certainly not a +3.5. I really, really hate that number. Total in the game set at 47.5. This is a pretty darn good number. I'm going to skew over on it because, again, I don't super trust the Texans on the defensive side. So give me over 47.5 points. Let's go 26-23 in favor of the Denver Broncos, who will win their 6th consecutive game. Finally giving my props to the Broncos, which I should have been doing a while ago. Want to talk about a game with another line that stinks? Let's talk about the next one. The Carolina Panthers in Tampa Bay taking on the Bucks. And I'm just going to cut right to the chase. The Bucks are 5.5 point favorites in this game. Why? Why in the world? That's not a good football team. The Bucks, they're a pedestrian football team. They're not terrible, but they're not great. Certainly not considering the division that they play in. It's not a good team. They're losers of 2 straight games. Carolina, losers of 4 straight games. I understand that the Panthers feel like they're in complete shambles right now because the owner won't stop talking to the media and basically just came right out and said, no, trust us. Bryce Young was our guy all along. And yeah, they're losers of 4 straight. And yeah, they turn the ball over a lot. And yeah, they're on the tail end of back-to-back road games. They are going to win this game. Do you know why they're going to win this game? They just fired their coach. That's a thing in the NFL. It doesn't happen all the time, but I believe either Matt or Martin or Moon is going to be able to pull that out of their hats. That when that game after they fire a coach, any team, they fire a head coach, that next game, they seem to inexplicably just win, and it almost doesn't matter who they're playing. It's definitely a thing in this league. And it's going to happen again because Tampa Bay are not world beaters. They are a very, very beatable football team. And the Carolina Panthers are going to win that game. Give me the Panthers outright on the road in Tampa Bay to get the win over the Bucks, and give me the +5.5 on the Carolina Panthers. Yeah, like the Raiders. Exact same thing. Total in this game is 36.5 points. This is going to be like a 17-16 game, low scoring, low event football game as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, give me the under on this one. Under 36.5, 17-16 final. Panthers win. Panthers cover the +5.5 and under on the points. Andrew in the chat chimes in with, if the Panthers win and the Patriots lose, that puts the Patriots in the number 1 draft pick for 2024. Very, very interesting. Very interesting. That might change things. Interesting. Anyway, have to think about that one maybe. And the last game we look at before we get to the Monday Nighter is the Los Angeles Rams at home playing host to the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland, more injuries piling up here for the Browns. Obviously, they're not going to have Deshaun Watson for the rest of the season. They are on the tail end of back-to-back road games. They may also be without Dorian Thompson-Robinson, the quarterback with the longest name in the history of football. Dorian Thompson-Robinson has a head injury from last week. I would lean out on him this week, which means you have your choice. It's PJ Walker, one of the least accurate quarterbacks in football, or Mr. Joe Flacco, Mr. Elite Joe Flacco. Don't be shocked if Joe Flacco starts this football game. Do not be shocked in the least. I think it has a legit possibility of happening. Now, the LA Rams are winners of 2 consecutive games. Kyron Moore is now back for them in their backfield. He came back in a big way, had himself a very solid football game. This Rams team are kind of turning things around a little bit on the offensive side. The defense is still kind of average. I would call them, league average. I feel like the offense obviously still has a ways to go here, but with Kyron Moore back in the backfield, that should give them a ton more confidence in their run game. I like their prospects in this one. Let's take the Rams at home to get the win over a Cleveland Browns team who may also be without Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett dealing with a shoulder injury. I'm going to lean towards him being in. They did say everything checked out and he was fine. I think he's in. I don't think he's at 100%. So if he's not, that obviously presents its own problems there, but I like the Rams to win this thing outright. Let's take the Rams at home to get the win. On the line, the Rams are laying -3.5. That's, of course, in anticipation of some quarterback news. I'm going to lay those 3.5 points because, again, who knows? They might go with PJ Walker, and if they do, I feel even more confident about that number. But let's lay the -3.5. Total in the game set at 39.5 points. Don't know what I'm going to get offensively from one side of this game, so give me the under in this one. Under 39.5 points in Cleveland, Los Angeles. Let's go 24-12. Let's have them double them up. Rams win, Rams cover, and give me the under on the 39.5 point total. There it is, folks. T's gone. One of these days I'm going to do that and it's just going to drip on the microphone, and that's just going to be the end of my channel entirely. All right, folks, last game on the slate, Monday Night Football. The Cincinnati Bengals, the Joe Burrow-less Cincinnati Bengals, are going to travel to Jacksonville to take on the Jags. 2 teams obviously going in the opposite direction right now. Cincinnati losers of 3 straight games, really, really struggling. The Jags winners of 2 straight. So obviously they're still, I keep wanting to say hey, they're still on the rise, but honestly, this Jags team is a team I don't really know what to make of. I think they're more than capable of winning just about any football game that they're in, while at the same time doing so almost completely unspectacularly. I don't know that there's anything that this Jags team does exceptionally well. Like their offense is fine. Travis Etienne obviously stands out. Their defense is fine. Their special teams are fine. They don't turn the ball over a ton, but they don't generate a ton of turnovers either. They're fine. And fine is fine. Uh, and they're a team I don't really know what to make of. Cincinnati obviously is really struggling on the offensive side right now. They're struggling on both sides, but especially on the offense. They really are they're trying to find it, obviously without their franchise guy, and that's very very difficult. Defensively, I feel like they're not giving up as many points as the yardage would indicate because they've been giving up a lot of yardage lately. It's like over 420 yards a game. So they're giving up a ton, but they're not breaking as much as you would expect them to. So I feel like any success that they're going to find right now, it's got to be on the defensive side. Sam Hubbard is healthy now for Cincinnati. Looks like they're probably going to get T. Higgins back this week as well. So that obviously is a big step up for them. This has felt like since the minute that I wrote it down, this has felt like a coin flip to me. It really has. And I originally was kind of going to lean towards Jacksonville because, like, well, let's lean towards the home team. But every time I go to do that, I just like there's something that stops me. And I can't even really properly articulate what that is. But there's something that stops me whenever I try to back the Jags. And maybe that is going to put me at a disadvantage in a situation like this, but there's something screaming at me to take the Bengals. Maybe because it's that team in prime time, and I still think that team, top to bottom, is a very good team. And I think when very good goes up against average, which again is what I think the Jags are, basically top to bottom, skew on the side of the team that's supposed to be very good. I'm going to take the Cincinnati Bengals to win this game outright. This might be a fool pick, but I do think they go into Jacksonville and get the upset. I don't really have a statistical backing for this. It's in here. It's the gut. This is very much a gut play. So let's take Cincinnati in Jacksonville to end the losing streak. Bengals get the win over the Jags. On the line, the Jags are 7.5-point favorites. This might be part of it because that's a really big number. That's a really big number to lay on an average team. And again, that's what I think the Jags are. So take the plus 7.5 on Cincinnati. That feels like a really good hedge to me, even if you don't think they win the game outright. I'm taking them outright. So obviously give me the plus 7.5. Total in the game here set at 38.5 points. I like the over in this one. I think this does get to a low to mid 40. So give me the over on 38.5. Let's go 23-20 in favor of Cincinnati. Maybe it's an Evan McPherson game-winning field goal here, but I think the Bengals get this job done. Give me the Bengals. Give me the plus 7.5 on Cincinnati, and give me the over on the 38.5 point total. There you go, folks. Those are the picks for week 13 in the NFL in 2023. Obviously, Monday Night Football, I got the upset here. Bengals getting the win over Jacksonville. What do you think of the picks this week? How do you feel this week is going to go? That's it for me, Justin, Bridgewater's Finest on YouTube, Blockbuster_guy on Twitter, fueled as always by the incredible folks at Nerd Tees, at least when I still had some left. The last thing I want to say before y'all get out of here. We are in the final days of Movember. My mustache is basically at full capacity of what it's going to get to this year. I have a campaign link, which is down in the description below. We're in the last couple of days. If you have the means to make a donation, I would really, really appreciate it. Try to get me to my goal this year. If you don't have the means, don't donate. Like I can't stress that enough. If you do not have the means, do not feel like you have to make a donation here. However, it is the last couple of days of my campaign, and if you can make a donation, I would absolutely love it. Thank you so much for taking the time to check out the show, and we will see you again in week number 14. Fantasy football playoffs just around the corner. All right, folks, that is the show. Let's see. What do we got here in the chat? At least you can grow a beard. My work won't let me. See that? Yes, that sucks. I get it. I get why some lines of work are just like, hey, like you can't. So I get it, but it sucks. Moon saying it's 8.5. Oh, 8.5 for the Jags on your book. Interest, definite. Oh, nice. I like that. Jump on that. Martin says he thinks he's going Jags. Andrew says Jacksonville struggling at home compared to the road. Excellent. We like that. Moon says they have a swimming pool. That's true. What do they do exceptionally well? They have a swimming pool. Hey, you got to have something. Bengals should not bother with the playoffs. Try to get a top 10 draft pick and draft an O-lineman. That's true. I mean, look, they certainly would have the ability to trade up into a spot like that. I'm less inclined these days to feel like teams are going to like intentionally lose for draft picks, unless it's like you're in competition for the first overall pick. You want to get that first overall pick. So that I will totally concede to. But if you're talking about like losing to sneak up into the top 10, to me, it feels less likely. But when you lose your starting quarterback, a stud franchise starting quarterback, then it's probably a little more likely. Donated $30. Oh, Moon, thank you so much. I really appreciate that, man. That's awesome. I really appreciate that. All right, folks, I think I'm going to get out of here now. This is like one of the shortest streams I think I've ever done, which is awesome. We're going to get out of here for week 13. Thank you so much for stopping in and checking the show out this week. I got a really fantastic comment on one of my CFL videos, which was cool, talking about how the person feels like I should be on television. And that's so humbling to hear. I don't think they're in the chat. I don't think they're watching right now, but if they happen to catch the VOD, like, hey, I that's awesome. Like I really appreciate that. And I love when people who don't have any skin in the game, like just strangers who don't have to be that nice, say something that nice, which is just awesome. And again, I steal like an artist from a lot of broadcasters who I've watched for a lot of years, and I kind of pick stuff here and there from them and put it into my own style. Again, I always say I have no classic media training, obviously. I think anybody that watches me for 5 minutes is going to be like, this guy does not have media training, but I think I speak well. So anyway, it's always very humbling to get comments like that. So I really appreciate it. Anyway, thank you so much for checking out the show this week. We will see you again for the live stream next week, next Tuesday. Obviously, no more CFL videos because that season is over, but we will see you again next week for week number 14. See, I didn't make the joke, but it being lucky week 13. Okay, bye.